So in light of the recent fiasco with Bark River knives mislabeling steel,
Bark River Knives has shut down.
We're secretively defrauding their consumers.
From using Chinese imported steel, grinding off the marks, replacing them with USA marks.
there's been a lot of talk surrounding knife testing in general. Specifically, how does one know if the steel type stamped on their blade is actually that steel? And if it is that steel, is it actually performing the way that it should? And the answer to this is, well, you can't. Even if you do scientific testing, you still probably can't. To explain, let me show you why this could be or can be so difficult. Now you think that there would be a really easy way to set up a series of tests that one could put their knife through in order to do some quality control testing of their own. Edge retention testing or hardness testing, for instance, to not only test the steel's performance, but also the heat treat. How do you actually know if something is good or not? So, like a lot of things, this is way more complicated than you may think. Let me show you why. So I made 2 test blades, both of them in 1084 steel. The first one was heat treated using Dr. Leonard Thomas's heat treat data from his book, Knife Engineering. Great book, by the way. I will link it below. Definitely recommend picking it up. Now, the first knife was heat treated to 1475 degrees for 10 minutes and then quenched in Parks 50. However, the second blade was heat treated poorly. It was way overheated to 1800 degrees and held for 10 minutes and then quenched in Parks 50. And I'll show you the effects that this has on the steel in a second. Now the interesting thing here is that both blades' hardnesses tested almost exactly the same out of the quench. So this is the bad heat treated blade and it is 66 HRC. This is our good heat treated blade and we're at 65.5, so within a half a point of each other. And so I then tempered them exactly the same at 400 degrees and what do you know? The final hardness was exactly the same. This is our bad one, 60.6. Somewhere in there. 60.5. Like we're within, I mean, a couple of tenths of a point between both of these blades. Now I also heat treated some test coupons exactly the same as our blade. One at 1475 and one at 1800. I then snapped them in half and looked at the grain. As you can see, the first sample quenched at 1475 has a much finer grain than the one quenched at 1800. This is because the higher temperature, 1800 degrees in 1084, allows significant grain growth within the steel. And larger grain can cause problems. What problems exactly? Well, leave your guesses in the comments below how this grain growth will affect our test blades when we go to do our testing. So now we have 2 knives, both sharpened at 20 degrees per side to the same exact grit. Now I did both some edge retention testing and some impact testing to see how they'd perform. And this is where it gets really interesting, with some results you're definitely not going to expect. But first, if you're looking for some knives from a company that I've tested a lot of knives from,
No.
definitely check out today's video sponsor, NAFS. NAFS.
This is a public service announcement. Cutting nails is not an approved use of a knife. Neither is opening paint cans. Knives are made to cut. Do not attempt anything you see in this video.
I performed a bunch of the tests you'll see in today's video on a lot of their knives, including the little Lulu. I actually liked it so much that after testing it to the extreme, I went out and bought my own with my own money. And this will make a little bit more sense later on. We'll come back to this. In the meantime, be sure to check out some of their stuff on nafs.com while you're watching or listening to the rest of this video. Now let's get back to it. So with both of our test blades, I did some edge retention testing. I did cardboard testing and rope testing to see if there was any difference between the good heat treated blade and the bad. I did some fine edge retention tests and I did some working edge retention tests with both cardboard and rope. And guess what? I could not for the absolute life of me tell a difference between the two in terms of edge retention. Both blades, both the good heat treat and the bad heat treat, performed exactly the same. I mean, I even looked at the exact cutting area under the microscope to see if we could see any difference whatsoever. We still can't. Well, that's because edge retention is largely related to hardness, and with both blades being equal hardness, we have similar edge retention. Now, a good example of how hardness, extreme hardness, affects edge retention are ceramic knives, where ceramic is super hard, harder than any knife steel, and will cut cardboard for way longer than I care to test. I did a video on this, which I'll link below. That's all my cardboard. So what happens when the apex comes into contact with something hard like a staple? Well, surely we'll be able to see a difference between these two knives with impact testing. Well, first I did a brass rod impact test, which didn't really do anything to either apex. I couldn't even tell where the brass rod impacted the apex on either knife. So I took it to the next level. I did a nail impact test using a bro science test rig that I made. Impressive, I know. I dropped the hammer from 2 different heights and compared the results. And here's the thing, in my opinion, the damage on both of these edges was almost identical. Basically 0 difference between the two. So what if we angle the apex and side load it when the hammer hits? Again, no difference. I mean, if you can tell a difference between these edges right here, let me know, because I certainly can't. So what about a tip strength test? What if we hammer the tip into a piece of wood to a set depth and pry with it? Basically do 2 things that we aren't supposed to do. Hammer and pry. Sounds like an 80s rap group. Well, with our bad heat-treated blade, the tip broke immediately. Like, immediately. There you go.
Hammer time.
But with a good heat-treated blade hammered to the same depth, we pried a whole bunch of times at the same depth and nothing happened. We'll go a little bit deeper this time. Nope. Try again. That's pretty deep in there. Still didn't break. Nope. We had to hammer it pretty deep and really pry with it before it snapped. There we go. Now looking at the snap pieces, we can see that we have really nice tight grain on the good heat-treated blade and large coarse grain on the badly heat-treated blade. This larger grain causes the knife to be weaker in both toughness and strength, hence why it broke. Now what you may be asking is, why didn't this shortcoming show up in our apex test when we smashed the apex into nails even at different angles? The answer is, I don't really know. My theory is that maybe geometry at the apex offered enough support, or even lack of support, even with the compromised heat treatment, in order for the results to be completely nullified. Sort of like if you crash 2 cars into a block wall at 600 miles per hour, you wouldn't be able to tell a difference in crash safety between any 2 cars you tested. But what's interesting here with this demonstration is that here we have 2 knives, one good heat treated and one bad. You'll generally only see flames like that if you're like way overheated. If we were to put handles on these and sell them, and the end user was to use these for their intended purpose, which was to cut stuff, no one would ever know that they had gotten a subpar heat-treated knife. Because this badly heat-treated 1084 steel would perform as a knife just as well as this good heat-treated counterpart, as long as the hardness is the same. This is why so much emphasis is put on hardness in the knife world. It's a metric that directly correlates to how a knife actually performs cutting stuff. In other words, hardness is wear resistance. And hardness is something that we can easily measure. The problem though is that the other attributes, toughness, strength, and even corrosion resistance, aren't really straightforward. And we can't really measure these things from a consumer standpoint very easily or at all. I mean, unless we're buying multiple knives from multiple different batches multiple times a year and doing some sort of standardized destruction testing and hardness testing. We just won't know if what we're buying is actually what we think it is. We have to have some sort of a control or series of controls to compare everything to. And this isn't even mentioning the most important thing, which is geometry. I mean, if the grinds and bevels are slightly different angles or thicknesses, you're going to get totally different results in all of those tests. This is why I think that you have to be really careful when interpreting hardness data or steel type or any one single data point. It's kind of like basing your entire car purchase on the engine horsepower alone. Hypothetically, if this was 2 new car listings, would you purchase either of these cars simply based on this data alone? You would need to know more. So the top car is a 500 horsepower all-electric, and the bottom car is an engine-swapped 500 horsepower 1.3 liter turbo Hayabusa engine. So we would have 2 cars making the exact same horsepower with 2 completely different engine and driving characteristics. And both would be kind of interesting in their own way. And I mean, if horsepower is hardness, then geometry would be suspension wheels and tires. It doesn't matter if you have 500 horsepower if you can't apply the power correctly for the task at hand. I mean, how many of you would think that this custom chef's knife from Edge Knife Works would survive a nail chop test? Let's find out. It's not going to. We've got all the horsepower in the world, but we don't have the chassis to support what we want to do. You see, it's just not made for that.
We need a fire department immediately.
Or maybe it's like comparing a 100 horsepower tractor engine to a 100 horsepower motorcycle engine. I don't know. You get the idea. So back to the original question, how do we know if the knife that we're buying is actually what they say it is and is actually good? Well, again, I don't think that you can. At least not without doing some testing, maybe even some extreme testing. Yes, get the horsepower data from a reliable source, but also check in with reviewers who align with your use case philosophy.
Bang! These knives I'm chaired.
Careful with how I talk about these knives.
Just wanna, because we know the steel is good, but I just wanna say the handle.
A questionable heat treat. I don't know why those results were surprising.
Meaning find knife reviewers who think and use your knife like you do. Find people that already have the knife and see what they think about it. And occasionally, some of these people will do things outside of the knife's intended purpose, like hammering it through nails or putting the knife in a vise and just snapping it.
Or even worse, running it through a pull-through sharpener.
To get an idea of where and how a failure will occur, and if it's inside the design capacity of what you can expect for that particular design. So I want to be clear here because I know somebody somewhere is going to bring this up. What I'm saying is that yes, we absolutely can test the steel properties in a controlled setting if we have all of the data. What's not easy to do is test knives as the consumer. Remember this guy and the problems we had with it? That fast? That is all the cardboard I cut. How would one ever be able to figure out what was actually wrong with it without buying multiple other identical knives and doing some questionable things to them? Unless you're willing to spend a whole bunch of money, measure super accurately, and break stuff. There's just too many variables in the heat treatment, the steel type, the geometry, the hardness, in order to pick one knife off of the shelf, test it, and say whether or not it's good or bad. Because it's not really good or bad, it's not on and off, it's variable. Hey, me again. Yes, I hear you. I know what you're saying. Yes, you absolutely can get a bad heat treatment, or a bad design, or a burnt factory edge, or even bad steel. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying testing for all of this stuff using one single knife is not necessarily straightforward. So I want you to take this weird heat treating experiment lightly. It's just an example of how data can be misleading if the entire context isn't given.
But not the flooding. This is essentially now a part of...
It really doesn't apply in many situations. And I think it even further illustrates how hard it can be testing knives. And sometimes you just have to put a knife in a vise and break it to see where its limits are. And that's why after testing its limits, and this was not planned by the way, I did this like 6 months ago, I ended up buying another one, another little Lulu from NAFS. Sometimes you just have to break stuff to test it, and that's what I did, as well as running them through multiple other tests in order to get a feel for how a knife is going to perform. 63.5. Anyway, I'm going to leave you with a quote from Laren from Knife Steel Nerds, and I'll leave a link to this video below. It's a good watch.
The point I'm making is that just because someone couldn't tell that there was a difference doesn't mean that there wasn't a difference.
Look, for all I know, I could have totally screwed this up. I'm just some guy in a garage, screwing around with knives. So this is just a really long way of saying to continue watching and supporting your favorite knife reviewers and YouTubers. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.